When I was a small and mid-sized business owner, I was like, the petition, like, what does that do? And until I came to American Promise, and we had 130 business owners sign in Maine. And when we released that publicly, along with the number of citizen signers, along with a report about outside money in Maine elections, including foreign money, money coming in from outside their state, a lot of money which Mainers did not take kindly to. When we released all this information, and we do that in our key states, it created kind of a media sensation, and the legislators felt it. They heard it in the news, and we delivered the petition to them, and they really do take effect.
John, well, I really appreciate you being here with me on the Social Entrepreneurship and Innovation podcast. For folks who are unfamiliar with you and the work that you do, would you mind introducing us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And Corey, thanks for having me on today. It took a while to get this scheduled, but glad we're finally doing it. I am the National Business Manager at American Promise, and our mission is basically to get big money out of politics. That's the short version. Advocates of the 28th Amendment. I have been at American Promise for 1 year. Prior to that, I was a small and mid-sized business owner and operator, all in the Washington, D.C. area in the IT services business. So what I tried to bring to American Promise is my background in especially small and mid-sized businesses, and how political spending adversely affects them, and what hopefully we can do about it through American Promise.
Excellent. Well, and there'll be a lot there that we'll get into here shortly, I guess. I'm interested to see what particularly about the mission of American Promise, the problem that y'all are solving, spoke to you personally, given your experience. I mean, we had the pleasure of hosting Jeff Clements, another member of your organization, I think maybe a year ago or so at this point. And he had a different origin story into the work. But I'd love to hear what got you connected to maybe Jeff, American Promise, and why did this speak to you as something that's so important to do?
Yeah, as a small and mid-sized business owner for 30 years, it's hard to say that number. What I was struck by over the years is, for one thing, escalating healthcare costs for small businesses, and really, how that put a lot of businesses in a very difficult place. And what I think might resonate with your viewers is, as a small business person, you don't have a lot of time to dig into medical plans, and but it's very important, right? I mean, you want to keep your employees happy. So what I was struck by was the importance of small and mid-sized businesses to this country in terms of the number of people they employed. But what I felt was the lack of their voices being heard in politics. And Jeff Clements was gracious enough to hire me with, and Dr. Jessica Hare, who was my first boss at American Promise, to hire me with really zero political experience. So I was one of the most senior members, but the least experience in what American Promise was doing. So I've been very fortunate that Jeff and others at American Promise allowed me with basically a pure business background to be repurposed and get involved in policy and politics. I've been very grateful to be here.
How do you think that's affected your lens and your perspective on getting so nitty gritty on this issue, and in some ways being a liaison, or I guess advocate specifically for that small business community. Like what's unique for you versus maybe other members of the American Promise organization?
Yeah. So if I can just take a step back, if you'll allow me to for a couple minutes here. Um, One of the things as a small business owner in the 90s, starting out, healthcare costs were um, maybe 10% over bare labor, something like that, and it was manageable. People were generally happy uh, with their medical plan and what they were paying, right? Because they pay a piece, I pay a piece as the owner. But over time, what happened was the cost just escalated out of control. And what was even worse than that, as a small business owner, you have to pick where you're going to spend money wisely, right? Because sometimes your own profit margin isn't that high. But what happened was, we were spending more and more money, and people were getting less and less happy. It was like the worst of all worlds. And I remember one employee a new employee, went through all the interview cycles with us, and we were excited to bring her on board. And of course, we had pre-negotiated salary, but when it came to benefits, she was like, "Well, I'm on this prescription drug. What does that cost under your plan? And my husband's on this, and my kids are on those particular drugs." And it just got out of hand in terms of the administration, and trying to keep people happy. It was kind of the worst of all worlds. So, you know, to answer your question more directly, thanks for the divergence here. I knew that the pharmaceutical and healthcare lobby spent, I don't know, north of 300 million a year, and I just kind of had a gut feeling that the playing field wasn't level, and small businesses were paying the price for it, especially in terms of what I think to be probably the most pressing issue for small businesses, which is their healthcare, not only their costs, but just if their people are happy with it, right? This You don't want your employees to be unhappy. Um, so that's kind of what brought me to American Promise, was just a gut feeling. I don't know, maybe it was because I was raised Catholic, and good and evil, that kind of a thing. But to me, money in politics is just evil and works against everybody.
Hmm. And so, if you could, I mean, we're doing it a bit here, but a little more, I think, might not hurt us. John, if you could set the stage a little bit for us more as to what is the extent of this issue, the money in politics, from this perspective uniquely of the small and mid-sized business community. Like what you mentioned, healthcare here is a really prevailing point, but why is that the way that it is? Like, why is it such a uniquely difficult circumstance, and how does that relate to the unrestrained money in politics?
Yeah. So, for example, in the 2020 election, 90% of all campaign spending came from just 300 wealthy donors, right? So, I think our population now is what 330 million people, something like that. So obviously, with that kind of spending by the 300 wealthiest donors, dictating 90% of campaign spending, um, are those people that they're backing, reflecting we the people, right? Instead of the billionaires who are out there, whether they're Republican or Democratic. We're not pointing fingers at either party necessarily. They seem to leapfrog each other in every election. Of course, the price of elections in terms of political spending doubles pretty much every election cycle. It was 14 billion in 2020, more than double 2016. But the parties basically leapfrog each other in terms of who spends more. So it's kind of a nuclear arms race on spending, and we just feel very strongly it's to the detriment of we the people, and in my specific role, the business owners.
And so when you're out speaking to this particular community, the business owners, do you feel like it's a very problem aware community? I mean, perhaps very keenly attentive to, for example, the healthcare costs for one. Do you feel like the connection is already made before you're in discussion with like that is affected by this adverse effect of an astronomical amount of money in politics, or is it something that you feel like there is a bit of a greater education that you do in these conversations?
Yeah, I think if I can just take a step back on that as well, uh, for small and mid-sized business owners, and like I said, I've been there for over 30 years. There's just not a lot of time in your day, right? So you're spending 4 days a week servicing your existing clients, half a day a week on administrative, uh, payroll, insurance, half a day on hopefully new business, right? I mean, you really should be spending probably 2 days a week on new business. So what happens is, they don't have a lot of time to get involved, but a lot of these folks, but they realize there's the problem. They know it in their gut, and in fact, according to the Committee on Economic Development, 89% of business leaders want to put limits on individuals, corporations, and labor unions. So to answer your question directly, sorry for the divergence, it is about education in some ways, but I think in general they're aware of the problem, and my job is to kind of connect them with action, and action that not necessarily requires a lot of time because they don't have a lot of time. So it is an education process, but more than that, it's trying to fit into their busy schedules and figuring out a way that they can get involved. Many of them, with not a lot of time, because that's the problem they have. They run out of time.
Greater beyond perhaps just the profit and loss statement, are there other kind of wider spread business climate and environment uh, um, issues that are caused by this culture that we have with the involvement of money in politics? Like, are there other ways, perhaps more indirectly or systemically, that small and mid-sized business owners are being affected?
Yes. Probably for me, I mean, I was in the high tech IT services area. So immigration, right? I think some of the lower skilled industry, hospitality, landscaping companies, whatever, and some of the very skilled labor markets like IT, technology, engineering, immigration, is another problem that's been sitting out there for 25 years, and nothing's really been done. And again, we're not blaming necessarily the Democrats or the Republicans, just kind of the way the political game is being played right now. Um, and I don't know if that can be tied directly as much as healthcare to political spending, but what I can say is when legislators get to Washington, D.C., and that's where I'm talking to you from today, outside of Washington, D.C., so kind of know the environment here, what happens to people. When new legislators come here, or actually existing, they're spending almost half of their day from day one raising money for their next election. Um, Sometimes more than half a day. I've heard as much as somewhere between a third to two-thirds of their time spent raising money for their next election. They just started. They, but that's what the parties are forced them to think of. So if they're spending that kind of time raising money, do they really have time to listen to you and me and other, small business owners um, about problems that are important to us, whether it's immigration, healthcare, climate, whatever it may be? The system is simply just set up wrong, where they're spending too much time raising money and not legislating. So that's, again, where money in politics is causing a problem for everyone, not just business owners.
Mm. And we touched on this a bit in our conversation with Jeff a while back, but perhaps as a reason to or an opportunity to remind folks, like why is the political spending climate as it is right now? And you mentioned likewise American Promise's advocacy for an additional constitutional amendment. What is why are we here? And why, it has this created this circumstance for small and mid-sized businesses that it has.
Yeah, why are we here? So the court ruling Citizens United 2010, which is we're advocating for a constitutional amendment which would give the states the power to regulate money in their own elections, right? There was 100 years of jurisprudence before 2010, Citizens United, where in a bipartisan manner, Republicans, Democrats basically agreed that there should be limits on political spending. And it was kind of well understood in the corporate world as well that this was, a benefit. But the Supreme Court ruling overturned that about 100 years of U.S. history. And it opened up, a floodgate of, money in politics. And what we're advocating for, Corey, the constitutional amendment, I mean, this has been done 27 times before, right? So this isn't anything radical, anything untried, anything untrue. It's been done 27 times before, including the overturning of Supreme Court decisions. I believe at least 6 or 8, including women's suffrage, right? It's hard to believe that at a point in time, women couldn't vote, poll taxes, that kind of thing, all the civil rights issues, many of them anyway, were overturned with constitutional amendments. So this isn't radical. This isn't something untested, untrue. It's been done before, usually in times of great adversity for the country, which we are in now, I believe. Yeah, that's kind of a history of it, where we've been and where we want to go.
And so you touched very briefly on the actions that you're offering up the business community that perhaps are effective, but don't necessarily require a lot of time, as they're typically short on that. What are some of those actions that you hope to enlist the small, mid-sized business community in?
Yeah, if they go to our website, which is americanpromise.net, and then from there, take action. It's a menu pick. They can join the business network. If they could please follow us on LinkedIn. That's probably the quickest first step. Probably 15 seconds. Most of these people are already on LinkedIn. Just follow American Promise on LinkedIn. We won't inundate you. We post at most once a week. But if they want to sign a petition, which is kind of the next step in the ladder of engagement, that takes probably a minute, 2 minutes. That's the AmericanPromise.net. Take action. Join the business network. And then, of course, if what we're doing really resonates with them, and maybe they have more time, they can contact me, John M. at AmericanPromise.net. And there's all kinds of ways they can get involved and help the cause up the ladder of engagement. But it all starts with following us on LinkedIn and signing the national petition at AmericanPromise.net. Take action.
And what's the significance of the petition?
Yeah, so the significance of the petitions, and I'm really glad you asked that because when I was a small and mid-sized business owner, I was like, a petition, like, what does that do, right? Um, and until I came to American Promise and we released, we had 130 business owners sign in Maine. And when we released that publicly, along with the number of citizen signers, along with a report about outside money in Maine elections, including foreign money, money coming in from outside their state, a lot of money which Mainers did not take kindly to. When we released all this information, and we do that in our key states, it created kind of a media sensation, and the legislators, felt it. They heard it in the news, and we delivered the petition to them. And they really do take effect, which I'm glad you asked, because I didn't really realize that when I was running a business myself.
Well, yeah, more the reason for folks to take what seems like a small action, like you mentioned, something that might not require a lot of time. John, what if you could paint a little bit of a picture for us? It's perhaps been woven throughout our conversation thus far, but let's say American Promise is able to fulfill on this work, helping us to pass this constitutional amendment. What does the world look like then, perhaps for the small and mid-sized business community? Like what does that business environment look like in contrast, perhaps, to how things are now?
And also, if I could take a second to talk about the large businesses as well, if this is the right time and how it impacts them, or maybe that's for later today. But constitutional amendments, do take time. There's some intermediate steps that are happening around the country, ranked choice voting, top five balloting, independent redistricting commissions. There's some good, intermediate steps that are happening. The constitutional amendment is kind of, for lack of a better word, the grand slam, and those don't happen very often, and they take a while, right? So we need 2/3 of Congress and 3/4 of the states. So it will take a while. But to give the states the ability to regulate money, and also, Corey, a lot of people, just real quick, I don't think they're aware how much foreign money is coming in to American elections now. And it is legal, believe it or not, coming in through the dark money, the 501c4s. In the 2020 election, $23 million in foreign money came into American elections. I mean, I just can't believe that. And many people can't believe that, foreign money is coming into our elections. That can't be good, right? I mean, that can't be good in any way. So we're getting a lot of attention from the states. We have 22 states that have backed us already. We're looking for Pennsylvania to be the 23rd. And we hope to get this constitutional amendment done by the 250th birthday of the country, which is coming up pretty soon, a couple of years away.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and where do you feel like we are on that track? What's our sense of progress?
Well, we need 38 states. We have around 22. So are we halfway? We could be. We're not, probably more than that. But this is just gaining more and more speed. If we can talk about the large businesses for a while. For example, Disney this year, there's reputational risk, there's workforce risk for companies. For example, Google in Georgia, they denounced the new Georgia legislation that would make it more difficult to vote. And then via Open Secrets, it was revealed they actually gave $35,000 to the RSLC, which was for the legislation, right? So Disney, same problem down in Florida. Got into a tangle with the state legislator down there. Now it's revenge politics. They're trying to, block Disney's tax advantage status in their improvement zone. Disney lost $63 billion in market cap this year. It's truly sad. And I just think corporations need to take the lead from one of the oldest company in the United States, IBM, who have never given to politics, never given to a super PAC, and they say they never will. I actually have their website up, and I'll read to you a little bit from the IBM blog. It says, but this moment in history should be about much more than organizations temporarily withholding political money to take a stand. This is an opportunity for us to pause, think, to look ahead at what policy measures can truly restore trust and confidence in our democracy. That's from IBM.com policy, and it's entitled Policy Not PACs. So it is possible for corporations to make it and do very well in this economy and take a courageous stand publicly before there's a problem. Disney said they were blocking all political problems, but that was after they got into trouble. And that just inflamed the situation even more, right? And now we're, about revenge politics. It's really sad to see this happening. And for the shareholders in Disney, right? It could be you, it could be me, it could be a lot of middle-class people out there who've lost a lot of money in Disney this year. So the point is, for the large corporations, the publicly traded ones, and there's more besides IBM. Pirelli Tire, North America, has taken the same stance. So to echo what IBM said, a company should never function as a political organization in any way. That's from Tom Watson back in the 60s from IBM. The time to say no to money in politics is not after you get into trouble with your political giving. The time is when it's calm and you can make that public announcement to your shareholders, all your stakeholders, that you're not playing this game anymore. It's not working for anyone. The money we used to spend in politics, we can, give to our workers in better benefits or more leave or do research and development, whatever it may be. So it is possible to be a large business in this economy, not give politically, and do well. I think that's important to note.
But is it something that does benefit enough of large corporations to where they perhaps see the short term payoff for themselves outweighing that?
We call it political rent giving. As a matter of fact, perfect segue. Yeah, unfortunately, a company in New York City on Wall Street, Strategas, they started an ETF called Strategas Global Policy Opportunities, which invest in companies that do exactly what you just said. These are the worst offenders in political spending. So if anyone thinks that Wall Street isn't cued into the temporary benefits of political spending, there's now an ETF out there that only invests in these type of companies. But it is very ironic that the symbol for this is SAGP. So to me, that represents sagging profits. SAGP, Strategas Global Policy Opportunities, which is investing in companies that are doing the opposite to IBM and Pirelli Tire, investing heavily in political spending.
And so I guess Is that the difficulty for the large corporation then? I mean, one, the large corporation typically being the group who's or the group that's making the greatest headway in this space of pouring a lot of money into politics. Is it strictly a moral choice then that they make? Like, is the general sentiment seem to be that it does pay off for them in the short term, and that instead, I mean, they can perhaps do well in this climate, but if they were to pursue it, I mean, is it strictly a voluntary moral choice that IBM has made as an example? Instead of, what would it be? Say IBM changed to, not that they would, and they decided to indulge in that sort of political rent seeking, as you mentioned. Would that pay off for them? Is that a belief?
It's just great timing for you to be asking that now, this year. It's impeccable timing. I think in the case of IBM, it was both a moral and business decision. They think way ahead sometimes, and I think they saw this coming. But if you look at, just this year, the Google example that I gave you, the Disney example, which is in the news, right here in Virginia, we had our largest power company, utility, Dominion Power, um, who historically have actually probably given equally to both sides, Republicans and Democrats. They don't know who's going to win, so they feel like they're being extorted. So they give to both sides because they don't want to not give to one if that's the losing party. But this particular year, they got into trouble. They gave to Super PAC, called Accountability Virginia. They gave 200,000 to it, and they hadn't vetted it correctly, and they admitted this. They apologized publicly to their employees and to Virginians. And this super PAC that they gave to, called Accountability Virginia, used some tactics that they found repugnant, and they actually asked for their money back. They asked for their $200,000 back. I don't think they got their money back, but it just goes to show that these large publicly traded companies, Google, Dominion, Disney, I think they're realizing that it's now beyond a moral choice. It's a business decision to make because the political spending is getting them into trouble. They're not good at it. They should go back to what they're good at, which is running their businesses, right? I mean, Google, it's an awesome company. Disney, awesome company. Dominion Power, they're doing a lot right in climate with their wind generation and everything. We just want these companies to spend time doing what they do well, which is innovating and making products that the country needs. Because it's pretty clear, as of this year, when they get into political giving, they can get into a lot of hot water. And Disney losing $63 billion in market cap this year is I think a monstrous wake up call to all the CEOs out there about political giving. The largest, the publicly traded ones.
Hmm. It seems like it's something of a fast and loose lifestyle, to where if it goes well for you, it can go really well, or as well, perhaps on the inverse, if it starts to turn on you likewise. So perhaps without it at all, there might be some greater stability into the business culture of all sizes. Well, John, I really appreciate you taking the time here with me. Before we wrap up, you mind if I ask you a couple rapid fire questions?
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. Go ahead, please.
Hey, y'all. Corey here. We're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsor. At Saybrook University, MBA and DBA degree programs are built for the quadruple bottom line. People, empower others within your organization. Planet, champion environmentally friendly solutions. Profit, increase profit with integrity. And finally, purpose. When business is guided by purpose, everyone benefits. Saybrook MBA and DBA programs challenge conventional business practices in favor of disruptive innovation and sustainability. Explore a business administration program that is guided by purpose. Learn more at growensemble.com/Saybrook. SAYBROOK. That's growensemble.com/Saybrook. All right. Well, first one for you. What's maybe a book, film, or other resource that you might recommend to our listeners? Can be about something that about the subject that we've chatted about here, or something that's perhaps just impacted you recently or otherwise.
Yeah, sure. Use the opportunity to give a shout out to my boss, Jeff Clements. He wrote this book, Corporations Are Not People. I don't know if you can see that in the webcam, but it's when I read that book, after I sold my last company, I was like, I want to work for Jeff. Just kind of laid out everything you need to know from a legal point of view. I'm not obviously a lawyer, I'm a businessman, but everything has underpinnings in the law, business law too. And the book is I think brilliant and an easy read and an interesting read. A lot of American history in there.
Excellent recommendation. Next one for you. What's maybe a morning routine or daily habit, something that you feel like you have to stick to, if anything at all?
Oh, okay. Well, I wish I could say I do, yoga every morning and I can stand on my head and all that, but I can't. I'd hurt myself. What do I do? My wife and I have coffee every morning. She's a very business oriented person, so I don't know when I'm going to see her in the evening hours if she's still working. So we try to stick to breakfast together. It's a nice little ritual we have.
Those are good rituals. I have something similar with my wife too. And the last one for you. What's one piece of advice that you might leave our listeners with? These folks are change makers and innovators from all sectors all over the globe, looking to leave the world a better place than they found it.
Yeah, just going back. I mean, this resonates with folks today. We've had a really nice conversation, Corey. Thanks for having me. If what I'm saying resonates with you and your experiences, please go to AmericanPromise.net. Take action. That would be great. And I just want to give a quick shout out to all our volunteers. I'm just amazed by our volunteers. We have some people who I swear are working 20 hours, some of them 30, 40 hours a week as pure volunteers for American Promise. There's too many of them to mention, but you all know who you are. And it's amazing to see. The core of this country is good. The people are good. Their ethics are good. Their morals are good. And they're really putting their time into our effort. And I can't thank them enough.
Seems like a critically important mission to get behind. John, thank you so much again for taking the time. We'll have all things American Promise linked up at our show post at socialentrpreneurship.fm. Thanks again, John.
Thanks, Corey.